Are the Republicans actually saying the reason that they're going to have to pass an omnibus bill with the Democrats in the lame duck session is because they're afraid they're not going to have time to rewrite the entire fiscal year 2023 budget? Well, that's not an excuse anymore. And in this video, I'll tell you why. All right, we got to talk about the Republicans because this is unbelievable. They're saying one of the reasons that they want to pass an omnibus bill in the lame duck session is because, and this is, of course, according to Daniel Horowitz today in The Blaze, and you can see it here, they won't have enough time to deal with rewriting the entire fiscal year 2023 budget right when it's sworn in because they're going to have too much on their plate, they say. Well, someone said, no problem. Let me take that from you so you can't use it as an excuse, because there is no excuse for you to be passing an omnibus bill in the lame duck session. So Russ Vought of the Center for Renewing America, who served as the director of OMB under President Trump, released a budget blueprint doing all the work for the legislators. It balances the budget in 10 years by focusing mainly on cutting woke and weaponized bureaucracies rather than popular programs, which makes it very hard for Democrats to demagogue. Now it's time to stand behind this blueprint and begin messaging its key points headed into next year's budget fight. And here's what it looks like. Center for Renewing America, a commitment to end woke and weaponized government, fiscal year 2023 Center for Renewing America budget. The CRA budget addresses the nation's fiscal challenges with a comprehensive effort to revitalize the economy while removing the scourge of woke and weaponized government bureaucracies aimed at the American people. You got to like this thing already. Top line path to balance. Number one, balances the budget in 10 years, reducing debt as a percentage of the economy from 100% to 71%. Number two, revitalizes a strong economy, assuming policies that will achieve 3.1% growth in fiscal year 23 and roughly 2.8% throughout the budget window. Number three, makes permanent the Trump-era tax cuts and provides full expensing of all capital assets. Number four, generates $3.8 trillion in increased revenues over 10 years from lower taxes, renewed deregulatory efforts, aggressive energy exploration, and spending restraints. Well, you can tell the Democrats aren't going to like this. Expand our energy, become energy independent, lower taxes, let businesses grow, expand spending restraints, no more printing of 40% of all dollars in existence. They're not going to like this. Number four, achieves nearly $9 trillion in savings over 10 years, including nearly $3 trillion to annual discretionary spending and $6 trillion in mandatory reforms. Discretionary spending, non-defense, provides $542 billion in non-defense discretionary spending, a cut of $91 billion or 14% compared to fiscal year 21, achieving $2.5 trillion in savings over 10 years. Defense spending provides $824 billion in defense spending, an increase of $83 billion or 11% compared to fiscal year 21, to ramp for a potential confrontation with China. With key investments in Navy shipbuilding, nuclear modernization, missile defense, and space platforms. Reduces Army end strength and eliminates funding for Ukraine and the European Deterrence Initiative to reflect a pivot away from Europe as allies bear the cost of their own defense. Number three, under discretionary spending, Homeland Security increases DHS funding by 6%, including $5 billion to restart construction of the border wall, double the number of Border Patrol agents, and increase the Coast Guard by 11%. Woke and weaponized bureaucracy prioritizes cuts to woke and weaponized federal bureaucracies, including a 7% cut to the DOJ, including a 13% cut to the FBI intelligence and counterintelligence programs, while increasing resources for actual crime fighting by 18%. $22 billion or a 20% cut to HHS, including a 37% cut to CDC to refocus its efforts towards fighting infectious disease away from sexually transmitted and chronic diseases, a 50% cut to NIAID, that of course is led by Anthony Fauci, because of its commitment to gain-of-function research and eliminating woke bureaucracy. Number 3 under woke and weaponized bureaucracies, $26 billion or a 43% cut to HUD, including a 3-year phase-out of Section 8 grants that are a magnet for crime and decreased property values, and cuts to the fair housing bureaucracy committed to breaking up neighborhoods with single-family homes. And that, of course, is AFFH, which we have talked about a lot on this show, that President Trump rightly put an end to, and Biden and Obama and Cory Booker out of New Jersey are obviously trying to get back in with AFFH. For infrastructure, increases funding for the Transportation Department by 10% with large increases for airports, seaports, and freight rail improvements. In addition, $187 billion is provided to improve the nation's infrastructures. For NASA, fully funds the Artemis project for the U.S. to return to the moon with a 37% increase in space exploration, paid for by sizable cuts to NASA's science programs. Mandatory savings. Now listen to some of these, folks. Achieves $6 trillion in savings from reforms that increase labor force participation and scale back an overly generous welfare system. There are no changes to now listen, because this is where Democrats are going to continue to go. They're going to, Republicans want to take their Medicare away, push Granny off a cliff. We know all the usual things. There are no changes to Medicare and Social Security retirement beneficiaries. Medicare grows Medicare spending by 6% annually. That's down from 7%, with reforms that will not negatively impact beneficiaries, including lowering the cost of prescription drugs by $178 billion, move certain unrelated programs outside of Medicare, such as graduate medical education and uncompensated care for hospitals, to grow slower, $167 billion. Various site neutrality reforms to ensure Medicare compensates equally for services and between different facilities. Automatically enrolls Medicare beneficiaries in the lowest cost plan in a given region, while seniors could still change plans without penalty, and eliminating payments to hospitals for bad debt, removing incentives to not recoup payments where they are not owed. For Medicaid, freezes Medicaid spending down from 3% growth, eliminates, now that just freezes the spending. That doesn't eliminate it, because people will lie about this and say they want to eliminate it. Freezes Medicaid spending down from this 3% growth that's built into it right now. Eliminates the Obamacare coverage expansions and returns the program to its focus on vulnerable populations. Reforms will include eliminate the Obamacare expansion of coverage for able-bodied working-age adults, allowing states to disentangle their Medicaid programs from Obamacare to the tune of $1.1 trillion. Eliminate the federal assistance medical assistance percentage, FMAP, floor that covers 50% of wealthy blue state Medicaid excesses, which is about $653 billion. And given that up to a quarter of Medicaid spending is deemed improper, increase program integrity controls and eliminate state scams to increase Medicaid reimbursements, $509 billion. Disability insurance, food stamps, adds a work requirement for able-bodied adults to transition to self-sufficiency. Well, what do you know? Talking about the individual, empowering upward mobility. Limits food stamps benefits to pre-pandemic levels and provides a portion of food through the Harvest Food Box, $412 billion. Student loans, phase out the price-distorting federal student loan program and introduce repayment reforms that simplify the options and ensure gainfully employed individuals pay off their loans in a timely manner, including one income-driven capped payment option. And then finally, eliminate tax credits for illegal aliens. ensures that illegal aliens without a Social Security number cannot qualify for earned income tax credits and child tax credits, which is $73 billion. For many years, Republicans wrongly communicated the message that the only way to get our fiscal house in order is to focus mainly on cutting entitlements. Because they never really intended to touch that hot potato, they gave up on cutting spending altogether and actually went along with every Democrat spending increase of every harmful bureaucratic agency funded under the annual appropriations process as discretionary funding. However, although the discretionary spending is smaller than the entitlement spending, it is still significant. Moreover, the cost of those agencies and policies is much greater than their appropriations price tag. They destroy the fabric of our country through woke policies and fascistic power grabs that harm liberty, life, and property. For example, the budget authority for the EPA is about $9 billion. Sadly considered a paltry sum relative to our $6 trillion annual budget. However, its true cost is in the hundreds of billions it takes out of our economy in terms of lost energy production, defective and junky products, lost jobs, and massive energy-driven inflation. Ditto for so many of the agencies governing land use, minerals, energy, and manufacturing in the departments of Interior, Commerce, and Labor. Can one place a price tag on the CDC and the NIH on what they have unleashed upon our civilization? Or the FBI surveilling and arresting political opponents? Budgeting is too often an exercise in accounting and austerity where every program takes a hit rather than an opportunity to examine what, in fact, the country is actually spending money on, wrote Roosevelt in his introduction. Nor is budgeting typically aimed at maintaining a political coalition necessary to vote for the plan, but it should be. The left has no interest in ever regaining fiscal rationality. Why should their spending priorities be protected? Absolutely agree. Particularly when such programs are damaging the very communities supporting the government with their taxes. Why should billions be spent on thousands of interwoven nonprofits, all with a vested interest in furthering multiculturalism through an open border strategy and engaging in lawfare against any effort to control the border? A perfect example of this, as I just told you, is his cut to HUD Section 8 program. Again, AFFH. We've talked about this endlessly. Overall, his proposal cuts HUD's budget by 43% because the department's policies spread crime and dysfunction into safe neighborhoods as part of affordable housing, AFFH activism, hostile towards single-family homes. That's right, they want to get rid of it. They want to bring the cities to the suburbs. Meanwhile, the suburbs are more diverse now than they've ever been, but they never talk about that. Under the section of the budget, the blueprint targets specific legal policies that should be defunded or terminated. Individually, many of them represent only an infinitesimal portion of the national budget, but their impact on our lives, liberty, and property, and character as a nation is priceless, not in a good way. As for the military, unlike every other GOP budget, which indiscriminately throws money at the military, this budget would roughly maintain the status quo on top-line spending. However, the funding would be focused on the hardware and capabilities needed to deter China, while entire woke and broke programs would be cut. Foreign aid would also be dramatically trimmed. Yet these cuts in the ensuring growth and unshackling of our economy they would induce, assuming a 2.7 average GDP growth, would result in $12.3 trillion in lower spending over 10 years. The result would be a balanced budget by 2032 rather than a $2.2 trillion deficit as projected under the current baseline. And again, this is all done without cutting Medicare and without cutting Social Security. Furthermore, by stripping the bureaucracies of the ability to destroy our economy from within, it would preclude things like COVID fascism from ever happening again. Remember, our government spent $5.5 trillion on COVID, not to mention an almost equal sum from the Federal Reserve shenanigans. That is money that was never projected in previous budget plans, but it was unleashed upon us. Controlled demolitions, including energy lockdowns, will undoubtedly occur again unless the bureaucracies are cut off, their policies banned, and their collaboration with private companies and NGOs neutered. That is where the battle, not just for civilization, but for fiscal sanity, will be won or lost, not with Social Security and Medicare. Aside from policy riders that would ban unconstitutional, illogical, or immoral government policies and programs, the budget targets some of the woke and weaponized agencies and programs from across the board, and I took you through all of those cuts already. Obviously, once we restore our civilization, we will be in a stronger position to deal with Social Security down the road. As for Medicare and Medicaid, we must first rebuild a parallel health care system built upon freedom, science, direct primary care, and decentralization in order to transition people into something much better than these ailing socialist programs. House Republicans must make it clear that the budget deadline should expire early next year and that something akin to this blueprint will be their messaging and will be their red line. They should pass a budget along these lines and refuse to move off of it. They should make it clear today that they have zero plans to pass a Democrat budget that will expose the harms of funding a woke and weaponized government every day through briefings, press conferences, and hearings, including through a government shutdown if necessary. Doing this will take Social Security and Medicare off the table as a distraction through which Democrats can obfuscate their harmful and unpopular policies. Right now, we are drowning in tyranny, in literally life-threatening biomedical security policies. We must focus on the life raft. Now we just need a speaker willing to take up the mantle. So this is great work by Russ Vought. Great article by Daniel Horowitz today in The Blaze discussing this. And this is similar to the things we've been saying. Why would we be compromising on anything in a lame duck session? Why would we be giving this the time of day? Why would we be trying to pass an omnibus bill? Why would we be passing the Defense of Marriage Act? Why would we be trying to raise the debt ceiling? Why would we be doing an amnesty bill? Why would we be doing that ever? But specifically during this lame duck session when you're about to take control of the House. And hopefully we can get our act together and come up with a speaker, like he says, that will take up this mantle. I think most people think it's not going to be Kevin McCarthy to take up this mantle, but we'll see. So there you go, folks. We will keep track of this. It's very, very important. Obviously, the budget. Great work by Russ Vought. Again, if you want to see this, it's online. You can go to the Center for Renewing America, the Commitment to End Woke and Weaponized Government 2023 fiscal year budget. It's available. We'll link to it in this video as well. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Please visit our sponsor, Mike Lindell and MyPillow, mypillow.com. Use our code LFS6B for all your holiday shopping. Folks, I'll see you in the next one.